That's pitiful. G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and you know, there can be several reasons why you end up with small garlic bulbs, but I feel like I've done everything right, except for one thing. Let's get into it. I picked these as they were starting to die back, and I hung them up in the shed. Just a couple from two different beds. This one here was from the bed behind me, and this other one was from the bed over to my right. One bed that went over to my right grew extra small, and this one here grew a little bit bigger, but still small. And I have my own theory as to why it worked out like that. But growing garlic in the subtropics is challenging anyway, and I like a challenge, and I also love garlic. So that's why I continually try to grow it, and every time I do grow it, I learn more about it. Now, I should disclose something to you. I've left it way too late, as some of you might have picked up already, to harvest the garlic. Normally you harvest them as the leaves die off, but not as they're completely dead and then the bulbs are starting to fall apart in ground. But before I tell you what I think has gone wrong with our crop, there are several other known reasons why your garlic bulb harvest might be small. And the first one is, perhaps you haven't got the right variety. There are some varieties of garlic that are fairly small, just naturally. So if you want big cloves of garlic, you want to grow a larger variety. This one here is supposed to be large. It's Glen large. And the cloves that I planted in these garden beds were fairly big. The second thing that can make your bulb small is a lack of water. The fellow that farmed this garlic here, well, not this one, that was me, but the ones that we planted to get these rather small bulbs, he told us an insider tip from his garlic farm that the garlic that was on the bottom of the hill that got the most water through the irrigation because of the runoff tended to grow larger than those bulbs that were further up. So he was saying that garlic doesn't mind a bit of extra water. If it is restricted of water, or if it's getting too thirsty and it's not getting enough water, well then it's going to be restrictive in growth. And going with lack of water can also be poor soil. If you've got poor sandy soil, well then the water is going to leach through really easily. And also fertilizer and natural nutrients isn't going to hold in that soil either, and it's going to be harder for your garlic to get the nutrients it needs to be able to grow larger bulbs. I also planted several other cloves in other beds that were even heavier and more fertile because I wanted to see if there was any difference at all, and the results of that will interest you as well. And moving on naturally from good fertile soil is fertilizer. You do need to give your hungry crop of garlic a bit of a feed throughout the season. Some people say every 2 to 3 weeks. I would say once a month, give it a feed of fertilizer. In this particular garden, I used several different forms of liquid fertilizer, and I also used a pelletized fertilizer, an organic fertilizer. If you don't give any extra fertilizer to the garlic plants, well, they may stop growing prematurely, and if they don't grow as well as they could be because of lack of nutrients, the bulbs are going to be smaller. And the second last point is disease. If your garlic plants do get disease like rust on the leaves, which is pretty common, well, that can affect the way the garlic grows and how the bulb develops underneath the soil. Because if the leaves are damaged or if it's getting sick, of course it's not going to be able to grow as big a bulbs as it would like to. And the last point, which I think is most likely my problem, is timing. When you plant garlic, if that period of time isn't exactly right, your garlic season might be shorter than it should be. And if it's shorter, of course, it's not going to get as much time to grow, and that's going to mean the bulbs are smaller. There's a saying around here that you should have your garlic planted by St. Patrick's Day, which is the 17th of March. But I didn't get our garlic in until early April. I think it was around the 2nd, and that was these 2 beds, and some of the other beds I didn't get the garlic in until a little bit later after that, because what I did was I sowed these 2 beds first, and then as insurance or any leftovers I put in some punnets, and I'll let them grow just in case these didn't come up. And most of them did come up, and also the ones in the punnets sprouted as well. And then I planted them out, which means they would have had to re-establish themselves in the garden beds. So what I'm saying is, even at best case, I planted our garlic 2 weeks late, and for some of them I planted it almost a month later than they should have been. So I think that is why the garlic heads are so small. But I think I can go even further than that and say I reckon St. Patrick's Day is too late. I think we should be planting in this particular area earlier than that even. I think that's what I'll do. I'll plant the garlic out much earlier, and hopefully that'll extend the season, and then we might be able to get a bigger bulb harvest. Right, the sun's coming from there. It's low in the sky through winter, so it's staying like that. And then it goes down there, and you've got these garlic which are doing quite well, fairly thick stems, big plants. Yes, there's a little bit of rust on the leaves, but actually that's normal for here anyway, especially through growing it through a cold winter, which we've had. So you've got that. And now you go to this bed, which has got exactly the same compost topping. The majority of the stems are skinny. Some of these plants are dying in the middle here. They're just not flourishing at all. I've been trying my best. The main reason is the sun, like I was alluding to. That seems to get much more direct sun without any sort of dappled shade at all day, for the majority of the day, and this gets shaded out through the early morning all the way through the day. It gets partly shaded out, the whole bed does, by this large basil bush. Anyway, let's just see how much I was able to salvage, and we'll have a bit of a taste test as well and see if that small garlic is any good. All right, let's start in this bed. These are the 2 that I harvested earlier. I can go in there and you can see how these are breaking apart now. See that? I should have harvested them much earlier. Okay, I get it. I mean, they can just be broken up as it is. Just store them like that in the pantry. Some of these have already broken up. In fact, I might just pull them off. No point in keeping the tops. This one here is going to be worse, I reckon. I can already see it. It's tiny, even smaller. Yeah, a lot of this is hardly worth it. To be honest, it's one of the reasons why I left it so late. I was going to just leave it. I was going to think, look, it's a failed crop. I can't be bothered harvesting it. Might even not do a video on it. But then I thought, no, we can learn from it, so why not? As disappointing as it is, let's keep pushing through and harvesting these tiny little things. I think that's about all we're going to get. I can't be bothered looking for them. They're too tiny anyway, to be honest. Oh, here's one. That'll do. Now, I told you about the extra garlic that I oversowed and then planted out later into these beds. I planted some of that garlic in here with the onions, and you can see how wonderful the onions are growing still. They have a little bit of time to go yet, but I'm thinking I'll get a fairly good crop of different types of onions out of this bed, and I'll bring you that video when it happens, of course. You would think that this being a more fertile bed, and if you remember from previous videos, this was one that I put quite a lot of cow manure in it. So it's got lots of nutrients and good water holding and nutrient holding qualities. Everything that garlic likes. But it still died off at the same time as all the other garlic. garlic. And it's still also got that rust or leaf disease that these onions aren't getting. And if there is a few that has it, it's very minor and nothing to worry about. That's why I can narrow it down to a timing issue rather than a soil or fertilizer or water or anything like that issue. And the garlic that was in these beds, which I'm going to harvest now, like for example this one here, they wouldn't have grown similar. And this one here has got a similar sized head. And here also I planted some garlic in amongst these brassicas and these cabbages. Head's not too bad. Garlic cloves are actually a little bigger. I'll come around and show you. That's not bad. I don't know if the rest of them are that consistent, but let's pull them out and have a look. Here's another one. Yeah, not bad at all. Still ordinary, but you know, not too bad. But yeah, still ordinary. Yeah, still small. Still pretty much intact, but it just goes to show it's still very small compared to the original ones. That's probably the biggest one so far. There we go. Still small, but the biggest. All right, there's the harvest. Pretty terrible. Let's have a taste of one of these small cloves and just see if they at least taste like garlic. There we go. Get rid of the skin. And I'll just bite into, say, half of it. Ooh. That's wasabi. That's really concentrated. I'll tell you what, Nina won't be kissing me later. Well, that's good. That is really concentrated and good flavour. Got a lot of punch. It's almost like a chili hit the back of the throat. So it's not all lost. I mean, there is a silver lining, but that's gardening, isn't it? Sometimes you suck at it, and sometimes you have some great harvests. You got to learn from both. Good harvests. Why was it good? Was it a fluke? Why was it a fluke? And then work out so that you can do that again next time. Sometimes just the elements are against you, and things happen, and you can't really do much about it. In this case, I reckon I've worked out what the issue is, and hopefully season by season I get the right variety. Maybe I'll try Glenlarge again, maybe I'll try a different variety that's a bit more tolerant, and we plant it a little earlier and probably improve the soil a bit more too, and see if we can't get a better harvest out of it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it was full of little things that were going through my head, and I hope that transferred into maybe some tips and hints for you guys. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video around because it could help some people out, and it also helps my channel out. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Cheers. I'll put this now out and we'll just dry it off a little bit more. Some of these are a bit wet. We'll put it on a little bit of a drying rack, leave them in the shed for a week or so, and then we'll start using it. Maybe I might try some for next year, but being these bulbs so small, yeah, could be a good experiment to see if I can make big garlic out of small. We'll see.